Let us put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. We are coming together before you this morning to say thank you that our country has a functioning democracy that mandates the holding of periodic elections. Other countries are not as lucky. Please inspire, guide, and nudge the stakeholders to do the right thing and to do this right. We humbly petition that our May 2022 elections will be clean, peaceful, orderly, transparent, and credible. Please help us to be true to our mantra that it is better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. For all this, we say, glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginnings, now and ever shall be. Amen.
Good morning and welcome, fellow election stakeholders, to today's forum organized by NAMFREL, entitled New Normal 2022 Elections, Are We Ready? A stakeholders forum on the 2022 national and local elections. This morning, we are hoping that the presentations and discussions would provide a glimpse of the state of readiness of our election management body, election stakeholders, and the voting public, with just 6 months before Election Day. In this forum, we will be joined by the Commission on Elections, which will present the state of readiness of Comelec operations on the ground, how the Comelec is COVID-proofing the 2022 elections, and also the Comelec's planned activities in the coming months. We would also learn the recommended health protocols to be adopted for the conduct of a safe 2022 national and local elections, including policies and guidelines should there be increases in COVID cases approaching Election Day. NAMFREL, as a member of the Comelec Advisory Council, will present updates on the Automated Election Systems, or AES, preparations, as well as innovations adopted for the 2022 AES to make it more robust and transparent. The Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, will be presenting on the readiness of the AES insofar as digital signing through the Philippine National Public Key Infrastructure, or PNPKI, is concerned, and cybersecurity to be provided by DICT to secure the automated elections. The Department of Education, or DepEd, on the other hand, will present on the readiness of teachers who will serve as members of the Electoral Board, as well as the DepEd's other roles in the coming elections. After the presentations, a panel of reactors from the academe, private sector, youth sector, and NAMFREL will give their responses. We enjoin representatives from the major political parties, business community, the media, and other election stakeholders among the members of the audience to participate in the question and answer segment. We hope that today's discussions would provide an opportunity for the stakeholders to be updated on how Comelec is ensuring that the 2022 elections will be free, fair, transparent, safe, and efficiently held. We also hope that the forum will encourage support for the Comelec as it strives to hold national elections during a pandemic and to further build trust from the public who looks to Comelec for leadership as we enter an election period that is bound to be fractious. Thank you for your kind attention. Back to you, Salma.
Thank you, Gus. As we all gear towards May 2022, we ordinary citizens have been bombarded with news reports of various candidates, posturing, and essentially presenting their agenda. But looking at all these news reports, we still remember the inefficiencies of past elections. So we at NAMFREL and our NGO partners alike are really looking at the national elections in 2022 and what can we look forward to, considering there have been various reforms taken either through legislation or by executive fiat on how the elections are run. So we have gathered today to look at, are we prepared for 2022, considering the vote really matters. And as what Thomas Jefferson has said, we do not have a government by the majority. We have a government by the majority of people who participate. And the more people who can participate, then that would be the expression of the sovereign will of the Filipino people. So are we ready to really listen to and actually accurately report what is the sovereign will of the people? Today, we have gathered various experts and specialists in the field of the conduct of elections, electoral reform, technology. Let us start by calling our first, let me introduce to you all the members, all our distinguished speakers. We have for this morning's forum, Director Teopisto Elnas of the Commission on Elections. He's currently the Deputy Executive Director for Operations. We also have the Honorable Emmanuel Ray Cantic. He's the Undersecretary of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT. We also have Attorney Marcelo Bragado Jr., who is the Director of the Procurement Management Service of the Department of Education, and not one of the line agencies intimately involved in the conduct of elections. And to round off the panel of presenters, we have our very own Mr. Lito Averia, the NAMFREL's resident IT guru. After the presentations, we will be joined by a panel of reactors. We have with us, we're so lucky to have him, the Dean of the Ateneo School of Government, Dr. Ronald Mendoza. He will be joined by Mr. Guillermo Luz, who is the chairman of the Livable Cities Challenge and who's among the bright stars in the NGO firmament. We also have to represent the young, Attorney Mildred Ople, who currently is the program officer of the Youth-Led PH. And to round it off, we have Mr. Fernando Contreras Jr., our very own IT expert. May I call on our first panelist, Director Elnas, to start off the forum. How prepared are we for the national elections in 2022? Director Elnas?
Good morning, Director Elnas.
Good morning po. Good morning, Sir Gas. Good morning sa lahat. Good morning sa lahat. Sir
Morning.
Gas and members of the National Movement for Free Elections, Mayong Buntag.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Updates on the preparation for the national and local elections, May 9, 2022. Tagline ng Comelec dito is Vote Safe Pilipinas 2022 national and local elections. Yung safe natin means or stands for secure, accurate, free, and fair elections. Next slide, please. So stats lang muna tayo for info lang sa lahat. As of September 2021, mayroon tayong 64,240,087 registered voters. And it was because Congress opted to extend the registration of voters up to October 30, 2021. Within that period, we were able to receive new registrants of 899,122, reactivations 171,754, and reinstatements 22. So a total as of November ERB hearing, mayroon tayong total registered voters of 65,310,985. Next slide, please. At saka idadagdag na rin natin registered voters abroad, that's 1.6 million. Okay. Now for the vulnerable sectors, we have the persons deprived of liberty, 46,640. But this figure is not yet fixed because by the time we will finalize the project of precincts and people who are qualified to vote next year's elections, mabawasan pa ito because ang tendency mayroong makalabas galing sa pihitan. So i-determine natin dito aling mga detention facilities ang magkakandak ng voting doon mismo sa loob ng detention facilities at ilan yung mga botante na buboto na PDL na buboto through escorted voting. For indigenous peoples, we have 12,272, and for purposes of the next year's elections, we will be establishing an emergency accessible polling place intended for the senior citizens and PWD. We have a total of 2,424 voting centers wherein which emergency accessible polling places will be set up. Next slide, please. So ito, pasadahan lang natin konti. Election systems for 2022 NLE. Of course, dito sa Pilipinas, we still adopt the paper-based automated election system. Gamit pa rin natin yung BCM na ginagamit 2016 and 2019 national and local elections. Ito, susulatan yung isi-shade yung gustong iboto ng mga botante. Then the BCM, the voters will feed the ballot, count the ballot yung BCM, then the BCM will print the BBPAT, and of course, there will be electronic transmission of results at the precinct level to the different, to the canvassing centers, whether municipal or city board of canvassers. Regular voters will vote at the designated polling place and voting centers, while PWD, like I said earlier, PWD, and senior citizens may opt to vote in the emergency accessible polling place. This is true if in case yung mga designated polling places nila within the voting centers is situated sa second floor, third floor, or fifth floor as the case may be. So pwede sila sa ground floor, doon sila sa e-app boboto. Of course, mayroong corresponding process and procedures ang gagawin ang ipapalabas ng Commission on Elections for the purpose of this e-app voting. Also, the detainee voting and the local absentee voting. This is not to mention the system na gagawin natin sa abroad. Dalawang din, we have the manual voting and of course voting using the automated election system. Sa automated election systems abroad, dalawa din yung konsepto natin. One is ipapadala through the post office. Yung isa is personal voting wherein shade ng ballot pupunta yung botante sa different post or designated voting centers abroad. Kukuha ng balota, magsishade ng balot, then ipifeed nila personally yung balota sa BCM. Next slide please. So dito sa Pilipinas, we have the local absentee voting. So ang entitled dito are government officials and employees performing election duties. And of course, members of the AFP, PNP. And this had been expanded to the members of the media, including their technical and support staff. Okay. So manual itong botohan nila. Okay. They will only vote for national positions. Ang period dito ng voting is April 27 to April 29, 2022. Kung AFP, PNP sa mga military or police camps, kung members naman ng media at saka government officials either at the office of the regional election director or the office of the provincial election supervisor as the case may be. So for local absentee voting, ipapadala lahat ng mga balota all over the country kung saan nagsiset up, kung saan nagbotohan ng local absentee voting, ipapadala dito sa Manila and will be counted by the Special Board of Election Inspectors who will at the same time prepare the election returns, then submit to the Special Board of Canvassers for canvassing the said ER, and then isasubmit sa National Board of Canvassers. National Board of Canvassers, composed ito ng Comelec for purposes of senatorial and party list, and Congress for purposes of the President and Vice President. Next slide, please. Okay. Since medyo luma na itong natin because yung BCMs natin because we used it 2016 and 2019, nagkakandak tayo ng refurbishment of BCMs. On screen, yun yung figure natin, but recently around 200 plus na lang ang for repair ang na-quarantine, and hopefully ma-repair na ito lahat and ready na gagamitin itong 97,000 BCMs for purposes of the elections. Next slide please. Dito naman sa sa tatlong servers natin sa Central Backup and Transparency servers, ito na yung mga nagawa na at ongoing pa nagagawin or ginagawa as far as the Central Backup and Transparency servers natin. Yon yung storage, servers, load balancers, firewalls, network switches, routers, cabling, data center telco service, primary and secondary. And next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. So, continuation lang ito. Again, for the Central Backup and Transparency, itong telco transmission media service or telco exchange, andun yung GPRS, VSAT, BIGAN, SD1, kumpleto na for central and backup server, and this does not apply to transparency. Transmission media service, yung PLDT, this coming November 30, makukumpleto na ito. BIGAN, VSAT, GPRS, and SD1. Operating system, kompleto na rin. Yung application, may install by December 10. And the database, kompleto na ang central server. Ang backup server ay makompleto at including the transparency this coming December 3. Next slide, please. Other preparations and requirements, yung sa international certification entity, ongoing ngayon. Yung hardware testing, nasa US. Pati yung software at saka yung testing dito sa Pilipinas. Of course, mayroon pang other requirements, yung local source code review, yung field testing natin, and mock elections. Kasama, ongoing rin ngayon, doon sa warehouse natin, yung series of lab test to see to it na yung system na ginagagamitin ay compliance with the terms and reference doon sa pagbili ng system. Okay. Of course, doon sa transmission, kasama na rin yung failover testing, stress testing, and other testing as far as the connectivity and transmission of results from the different precincts up to the national level, including the 3 servers, yung transparency, backup, and central servers natin. Also, ikakandak din natin yung pre-logic and accuracy test. Doon yan gaganapin sa Santa Rosa warehouse, and of course yung final testing and sealing that will be conducted days before the elections. Mock elections natin, schedule is December 29, 2021, and field test will be conducted this coming December 14, 2021. Okay. Next slide, please. On screen are the areas for mock elections. Dito sa mock elections natin, ito na yung end-to-end demonstration ng buong proseso, and iti-testing din gaano ka-accurate, gaano katama, at gaano ka-secure yung proseso, yung mga resulta na ipapadala, na bibilangin, ipapadala, at ma-receive sa mga different destinations. Dito rin, isusubok ang proseso ng VCM natin. Right from the start, pag-open, hanggang sa voting, consolidation of results, then printing of election returns, and also the printing of the voter receipt or the BBPAT. Then, masusubukan din yung pag-transmit from the precinct level to the City Municipal Board of Canvassers, and sa CCS part from the City or Municipal Canvassers to the Provincial Board of Canvassers up to the National Board of Canvassers, including the 3 servers na sinasabi ko. Okay. Ito yung mga areas on screen. Okay. Si-simulate, ikakandak natin from the precinct level, as I said, to the canvassing, city, municipal, hanggang sa itaas. Okay. Next slide, please. So tapos na yung guidelines natin, yung general instructions natin for voting, counting, also rules on canvassing, campaign rules, and gun ban. As of now, sa kasalukuyang dinidiscuss, pina-finalize yung drafting ng contingency plan that will be used for purposes of the election just in case mayroong hindi magandang nangyari during elections. Okay. Next slide, please. So timelines, yung mga importanteng activities and dates. Election period, of course, it carries with it gun ban. That will start January 9, 2022 to June 8, 2022. Campaign period for national, that's from February 8, 2022 to May 7, 2022. For local, March 25, 2022 to May 7, 2022. Local absentee voting, na-mention ko na ito kanina, April 27, 28, and 29. And overseas voting, this will be conducted ahead of time, April 10 to May 9, 2022. Of course, before the elections, sinabi ko, there will be series of final testing and sealing at the precinct level, right where kung saan gaganapin yung mga electoral boards natin ang pag-conduct ng elections. Dito titingnan din natin if in case mayroon pang mangyayaring na hindi maganda along the way, whether hardware or software or sa system, mati-check pa natin during this period, May 2 to May 7. Of course, ang araw ng halalan, May 9, 2022. Next slide, please. So trainings, trainer of trainings, December 8 to 16, DOST certifiers, December 17, field personnel, December 18 to 20, and of course, ito na yung pinaka-bulk sa training natin, yung training with the electoral boards. That's from January 15 to March 31, 2022. The Board of Canvassers and Special Board of Canvassers, January 15 to April 15, 2022. By the way, dito sa 63 barangays who voted for the inclusion in the BARM, considering the fact na na-reset yung election ng parliament ng BARM, and also itong 6 municipalities dati were in which itong 63 barangays belong before the BARM plebiscite, wala silang constituency as far as the municipal level and provincial level. So ang gagawin ng Comelec is that they will still participate in the conduct of the election, but they will be voting the national candidates only. Kasi wala pa silang constituency as far as the municipality and province is concerned. So yung pagbotohan lang nila ay national candidates, at saka yung system ng election nila ay mano-mano, manual. No? They will use the manual ballots, print or write the names of their candidates, then the electoral boards will count the ballots and accomplish the election returns. Then after that, this accomplished election returns will be brought to Cotabato City, kung saan nandun yung Special Board of Canvassers who will canvass the election returns coming from the 63 barangays. And then prepare the certificates of canvass, then submit to the National Board of Canvassers. Okay. So, refresher, mayroon din tayo kasi medyo April, may layo-layo pa sa election itong last day ng training schedule natin. That's why Comelec will be conducting refresher courses sa SBEA, sa electoral boards, sa Board of Canvassers from April 22 to April 30, 2022. Of course, mauna itong printing ng ballots for overseas voting. Mag-start yan January 12 to January 13. And the local absentee ballots also, kukunti lang ito sa isang araw lang, January 14. Next slide, please. For deployment, dalawa itong deployment scheme natin, no? One for ballots, accountable forms and supplies. Ang pangalawa is deployment as far as the BCM and components is concerned. For official ballots from NPO, dadalhin sa warehouse sa Pasig for packing and labeling. Then after that, idadaan sa provincial treasurer's office who will forward it to the city or municipal treasurer within his jurisdiction, and doon sa city or municipal treasurer's office magkakandak ng verification of ballots, forms, and supplies to check before the elections whether complete yung allocation, complete yung number of ballots received per clustered precinct. No? Check yan just in case may discrepancy or insufficient in forms and supplies, itatawag kaagad sa command center and parang maaksyonan and madispatch kaagad yung mga deficiencies ng balota if in case or other forms and supplies. Early morning ng May 9, 2022, Electoral Board will now, by the way, dun sa process ng verification of ballots and accountable forms and supplies at the Treasurer's Office, this is the election officer, the city or municipal election officer, together with the municipal or city treasurer, will issue a notice, no, to everybody, to all stakeholders, to witness and observe the conduct of verification of ballots. Napaka-importante ito, napaka-importante na transparent itong process na ito, because pag hindi, andun na naman yung haka-haka na pinil-upan ang balota, dinadala yung balota kung saan-saan, etc. So it's very important for the treasurer and election officer concerned to issue the corresponding notice to stakeholders, to different political parties and candidates, including the citizens' arm, to witness this process. Okay. On election day, the city or municipal treasurer will now distribute and deliver to the different electoral boards within the jurisdiction. No? Then this electoral board will now be deployed to the different polling places. Alam na natin ito, kung saan yung designated voting centers nila. But in some areas, due to distance and security and of course transportation facilities availability, magkakaroon ng early dispatch or delivery of these official ballots, no, ahead of time, ahead of May 9, 2022. Next slide, please. So this time, a deployment of VCM and its components. No? So from Santa Rosa, pagkatapos ng pre-lot, pagkatapos ng kitting, mailagay lahat including the FTS ballots, lahat ng SD cards, I-buttons, all components ng VCMs, dadalhin yan sa provincial or municipal sub-hubs. Doon i-store muna in the meantime, and during final testing and sealing, depending on the dates set by the election officer, no, dadalhin, may coordination yan sa service provider, dadalhin yung mga VCMs to the different polling places within the city or municipality for the electoral boards to conduct the final testing and sealing. Okay? So, doon sa final testing and sealing, gagawin ng electoral board, may mga test ballots, etc. Then after the final testing and sealing, it will be left doon sa voting center, sa designated voting center, and will be secured by the AFP or PNP, as the case may be, together with the watchers of political parties. At maganda kung nandun din yung watchers ng citizens arm natin. Next slide, please. So ito yung pinaka-challenging ngayon na ginawa, na gagawin ng Comelec. No? Actually, nagawa na natin itong mga ito during the conduct of the Palawan plebiscite. No? And also, I myself, meron din akong experience at karanasan, no, to witness. I was able to witness actual elections conducted in Kazakhstan and Mongolia. Kazakhstan, that was last January, and Mongolia last June. Doon nakita ko how to implement this COVID preventive measures to ensure that the voting process is COVID proof, and to ensure the voting public and the voting populace that the process and procedure safe sila while undergoing the voting process procedure, and hindi lang sila, pati yung mga electoral boards or people manning the polling place, safe din sila. So nakita natin personally yung how to conduct the elections with these COVID preventive measures. And of course, na-testing natin ito, as I said, sa Palawan plebiscite. So ito na yung gagawin natin, temperature checking right at the entrance ng voting center. Okay? This will be done by health personnel na itatalaga ng Comelec. Aside from that, there will be the PNP or AFP, as the case may be, will take charge as far as the crowd control right at the entrance ng voting centers natin. Kasi ini-expect natin may mga time na dagsaan ang pagpunta ng mga botante. No? Karamihan dyan, early morning, dagsaan yan, tapos maglalal mga 12 to 1 or 2, babalik na naman yan, magdagsaan 3 to 5 hanggang sa katapusan ng oras ng botohan. By the way, our voting will start at 6 o'clock in the morning and will end at 7 o'clock in the evening. Okay. So also, we will be setting up, if possible, separate entrance and exit for each voting center. Kung dalawa yung gate ng voting center, that would be better. Parang hindi na babalik, hindi magki-criss-cross, hindi magkasalubong ang mga botante na papasok at lalabas sa voting center. Mandatory itong wearing ng face mask, and of course itong face shield mukhang magiging hindi na ito mandatory, no? Actually ngayon hindi na nga mandatory yung magsuot ng face shield, no? Except yung mga lugar na close, kulob, maraming tao, etc. Andyan pa rin yung 1 meter physical distancing. Okay? That's why, and in relation to this, Comelec magtatalaga ng health safety protocol officer doon sa voting center mismo to check and to monitor that everyone should comply all of these COVID preventive measures, especially the 1 meter physical distancing and wearing of face mask. Also, we will be installing sanitation stations, yung mga alcohol, right at the entrance ng polling places natin, at the entrance ng voting centers natin, and of course, kung magtalaga tayo ng emergency accessible polling place, doon din, and of course, doon sa voters assistance desk na i-discuss natin later. Frequent disinfection of hands, frequent disinfection of regularly touched surfaces, like yung marking pens natin, palagi nating i-disinfect yan, yung upuan at saka yung lamesa na gagamitin ng mga botante, frequent din yan na i-disinfect ng mga electoral board. Of course, mayroon tayong i-impose na proper cough and sneezing etiquette. Next slide, please. Also, we will be establishing the IPP or the isolation polling place. Just in case, at the time when chinek yung temperature ng isang botante, just in case lalampas siya ng 37.5 centigrade, dito siya dadalhin sa IPP. No, hindi siya pauwiin kagad because he will be deprived of his right to cast his vote. No, dito siya dadalhin sa IPP and be-verify yung pangalan niya, i-verify kung botante siya within that voting center, and if indeed may establish yung identity and he is a registered voter in that voting center, kukunin ng staff ang kanyang balota kung saan siya rehistrado. Kukunin, then after that dadalhin sa IPP, then he will be allowed to cast and fill up his ballot, and after that, ito turn over na siya sa mga health officials. Okay? Magkakaroon din ng health station within the voting center. Itong establishment of voters assistance desk, ito na try na natin ito when we conducted the Palawan pleb. Napakahalaga at napaka-importante ito because this will address problems ng mga botante na hindi pa nila alam kung ano ang presinto nila, ano ang precinct number nila, at saka saan yung polling places nila or classroom na kung saan nakalagay yung presinto nila. So with this voters assistance desk, they will be guided accordingly kung ano yung precinct number niya, kung saan ang specific location ng kanyang polling place based doon sa ilalagay na tinatawag na voting center layout. Nakalagay doon yung precinct assignments, no? So ituturo na lang, nandun yung voting center mo, yung polling place mo, yung presinto mo, doon sa building na yan, second floor, dito sa right wing. No? So voters will be guided at hindi na sa paggala-gala at maghanap ng kanyang pangalan. No? Titingin doon sa precinct posted list of voters doon sa mga polling places. And this will be manned by the citizens arm of Comelec. Okay? As much as possible also, kung maraming area, maraming classrooms pa, we will be establishing holding areas, no? Practically doon sa katabi ng mga rooms na mga polling places. Just in case maraming tao sa labas waiting for their turn to get inside and cast their votes, doon sila muna uupo, doon sila muna papasok sa tinatawag na holding areas. Okay? So ito na yung sinasabi ko kanina, the posting of layout of the voting center. No, doon makikita kung ano-ano yung mga classroom at saan-saan yung mga classrooms nila na pwedeng or napupunta sila dahil nandun yung kanilang polling places. Okay. Of course, ang pag-display natin ng signages, whether directional, no, yung mga this way, yung mga number of precincts na na-assign within that particular building, and other informative signages, no? Yung mga paalala natin as far as the COVID preventive measures is concerned, paalala yung social distancing, paalala paano gagamitin at gagamit palagi ng face mask while inside the voting center. And of course, yung signages ng dito papasok at dito lalabas. Nagawa na natin ito during the simulation of voting natin. When we conducted that simulation of voting doon sa San Juan. Of course, yung tables and chairs inside the polling place will be arranged in such a manner that basically physical distancing is at all times observed. Okay? Installation of plastic barriers between the electoral board and voters. No? Kailangan yan kasi babad na babad yung mga electoral boards natin from the start and opening of the voting up to the close of voting. So maximum of 10 voters or 15 voters at a given time, but there are voting polling places natin na malaki and magbavary ito. No? At least ang guidance is the minimum social distancing requirement mako-comply strictly within the classroom or polling place. Next slide please, kung mayroon pa. Wala na pala. So with that, again, ako po ay magpasalamat sa ngalan ng Comelec sa pag-imbita ng NAMPREL and for us to share this information, basic information as far as the preparation and conduct of the 2022 national and local elections. Marami pong salamat, daghang salamat, maayong buntag.
Thank you, Director Elnas. Napaka-comprehensive ang mga measures na isinasagawa ng Comelec. For those who have just joined us, we're at a stakeholders forum on the 2022 national and local elections. Are we ready for the new normal 2022 elections? Our next panelist is Undersecretary Emmanuel Ray Caintic. Unfortunately, Mr. Kaintik will not be able to join us as he has to undergo his vaccination. So he has sent his presentations in a video format. While we're waiting for our secretariat to ready the video, may I just take this moment to acknowledge participants from our network and NGO partners and supporters. This is from representatives from the EU delegation, from USAID, from the British Embassy. We're lucky to have with us as part of our audience, former Comelec Commissioner Attorney Christian Monsod, sir. We also have the Secretary General of United Nationalist Alliance, Attorney Ejercito. We also have members of Youth Vote Philippines.
To Mr. Eric Jude Alvilla, Secretary General of the National Citizens Movement for Free Elections, Chairman Augusto Lagman, and all NAMPREL officials and members here today. To my co-presenters, Director Chopisto Elnas Jr. from the Commission on Elections, Director Marcelo Bragado Jr. from the Department of Education, and Mr. Lito Averia of the Comelec Advisory Council and NAMPREL National Council, to all the reactors, media personnel, guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen, isang magandang araw po sa ating lahat. First of all, I would like to commend the NAMPREL for organizing today's Stakeholders Forum on the 2022 election. This is a great opportunity for the general public to know more about the upcoming elections as well as to promote transparency in the government. May this event help address relevant questions and concerns that our kababayans have in relation to the upcoming elections. One of the most obvious challenges for the 2022 national and local elections is the COVID-19 pandemic protocols. As the lead agency tasked with the digital transformation of the country, your Department of Information and Communications Technology has been conducting preparations to aid the government in the upcoming elections in the new normal. Pursuant to Republic Act 9369, or the Automated Election Law, your DICT has also been leading the Comelec Advisory Council, which is mandated to recommend the most appropriate, secure, applicable, and cost-effective technology to be applied in the automated election system. Our goal is to have a fair, secure, and transparent election process in 2022. For this purpose, the DICT has also been providing technology support for the preparation of the upcoming 2022 elections. One of these is our assistance to the Philippine National Public Key Infrastructure, or PNPKI, for the use of the Board of Election Inspectors. In general, the public key infrastructure aims to improve the delivery of government services to citizens. As such, all government online applications are greatly benefiting from it. The PKI uses the concept of digital certificates. These certificates are very small files that can be stored on your computer, an ordinary flash drive, or USB token. Through the use of certificates issued and digitally signed by a certificate authority, the PKI authenticates the data source and ensures data had not been tampered with in transit. PKI can also be used to encrypt data such as email or online transactions. More than 500,000 PNPKI registrations were already transmitted from all over the country. From this number, a total of 183,825 applications were accepted, as most of the provided submissions did not follow the prescribed format for the PNPKI application. A total of 50,569 subscribers were able to download their respective certificates. The DICT does not have control over these issued certificates, and only the subscribers themselves can download their own certificates. In relation to the cloud resources that would be available and needed in the upcoming elections, the DICT, through its Cybersecurity Bureau, has been conducting the vulnerability assessment and penetration testing services to further assess the security of election data and information. The vulnerability assessment has already been conducted by the DICT, and we are currently awaiting the results of the penetration test. Also, a memorandum of agreement between Comelec and DICT for the hosting of Comelec systems is currently undergoing review. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to consider a number of health and safety protocols during the election day. These may include RT-PCR tests and vaccination of public school teachers and other personnel who will participate, and considerations on the number of persons allowed to enter voting precincts, duration of voting, and finalization of health and safety protocols are constantly being improved. The DICT, together with the Comelec and Department of Education, is currently coordinating with one another to come up with a plan to address the need to conduct RT-PCR tests for the electoral boards. Voting hours may be changed following the pandemic restrictions, and the number of voters attending the voting precincts may be decreased. For the training of the 2022 National Electoral Boards, a proposal has been made to conduct blended training, both physical and virtual, in consideration of the ongoing pandemic. Another suggestion was to put up a digital signature registration booth at the physical training premises. This will allow the participants to register their digital signatures in case they do not have it yet. The upcoming elections is sure to be one of the most challenging one yet. However, let us continue to trust our government. We have been tirelessly working and coordinating with one another to set up an organized and safe 2022 elections for all Filipinos. We can achieve this through everyone's cooperation and continued support in our endeavors. Let us look forward to an organized and safe 2022 elections and for our better country. Thank you and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Undersecretary Kaintik. I hope you can join us later for the Q&A, also with Director Elnas. Our next panelist is Attorney Marcelo Bragado Jr. From the Department of Education, one of the line agencies intimately involved in the conduct of elections. Attorney Bragado, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can I be heard po? Good morning, everyone. Good morning to our National Chair, Sir Augusto Lagman. Magandang umaga po. Sir Eric Elvia, our Secretary General of NAMFREL. Magandang umaga. Sa ating pong kaibigan po na si Deputy Director Chapisto Elnas. Ang aking po kasama sa Comelec Advisory Council, si Sir Lito Aviria. Magandang umaga po. At kay Yusek Manica Inpic. I will just present po a little update and also some data that were used last 2019 elections para lang po meron tayong comparison on how was the election in 2019 with respect to the data and incoming 2022 national and local elections. I will turn up my video and present po some slides if you may allow. Thank you. I will just choose po some slides that are relevant for our discussion for today. As you can see po, these are the quick statistics that we had last 2019 national elections. As discussed by our good friend, Director Elnas, our registered voters for this 2022 elections would be 65,000 based on their last ERB hearing. Last 2019, we had 61,400,000 registered voters, and the clustered precincts that we had is 123,350. Of course, there's a composed of different public schools nationwide, which were constituted as voting centers. Then, of course, the number of pictures corresponding to the precincts we had last 2019, 370,050, and per precincts we have 1,000. The number of PCMs used last 2019 is 97,509. Allocated 85,756 of course, the remaining will be the reserve VCMs in case there will be technical problems with regard to the main VCMs deployed in the public schools. Let me share also that DepEd has allowed its personnel to, of course, help Comelec in this noble task of handling the elections. Aside from the electoral board, we have personnel who man the elections as support staff, DESO or the DepEd supervisor official, technicians, and other personnel who help. Grand total of our personnel that were used or utilized in the last 2019 elections is 531,307. And we expect this to increase this coming year, 2022, because of the increase, of course, of the clustered precincts that we will have, considering the pandemic that we are still experiencing. And we are ready, actually, with regard to the 22 elections, of course, with the full support of the Comelec and the DICT. As a short background, DepEd has been there every elections, and we really make it a point to coordinate and work with Comelec harmoniously. And Comelec has been gracious enough to really help the teachers and the DepEd with our request so that the elections for them will be not so hard or difficult. DepEd, of course, is a deputized agency, one of the executive branch for the elections, and it has the following duties and functions. Let me share this. Comply with and enforce all orders and instructions of the Comelec relative to elections and plebiscites. Allow the use of public schools, not to hold during the plebiscite or elections period conferences, seminars, or any school activity which might interfere, restrict, or prevent the performance of election duties of its personnel, and perform such other duties. Of course, we have the general instructions which came out last week or early November 10, I guess, Comelec Resolution 10727. And this outlined or specifically provide the rules and regulations and the provisions for the voting, counting, and transmission of election results, as well as the constitution, composition, appointment of the electoral boards, use of the vote counting machines, and the process of testing and sealing our BCMs during the elections. We are all aware that there is a law, or the Election Service Reform Act, or RA 10756, which actually made made election duties for teachers voluntary. Hindi na po siya mandatory just like before. So we don't actually compel our teachers to work during elections. It's purely voluntary. Inalis na rin po ng extra law yung ating tawag na BEI. Ngayon po ay kung napansin natin sa electoral board na po ang tawag natin, whether it be a barangay SK elections or a national and local elections. Ang sabi po sa extra law is ideally one clustered precinct, one electoral board, and one clustered precinct composed of 800 to 1,000 voters. Ang ating pong 10727 resolution ng Comelec, nakalagay po doon ang constitution and appointment ng ating chairman and members will be on January 17 to 31, 2022. So tamang-tama lang po yun sa nabanggit na training na gagawin po ng Comelec sa ating mga electoral board. Of course, the composition of electoral boards, ang ating po preference is always the public school teachers. At ang nakalagay po dyan, one of the electoral board shall be information technology capable, kaya po meron tayo certification na ginagawa ang DOST during the training. At ang nakalagay po na additional doon sa ating preference ng pag-select sa electoral board, according to our Comelec Resolution 10727, is that they should be not more than 60 years old, walang comorbidities, at fully vaccinated. So meron po tayong additional requirement other than those traditionally na requirement po for electoral board. Siyempre, for the safety and health na rin po ng ating mga teacher personnel, and we appreciate Comelec for providing that additional qualification or preference sa mga mag-serve po as electoral board and other DepEd personnel that will work during the elections next year. Now, what is the role of the electoral board? They have the following powers and functions. Of course, they will conduct the final testing and sealing. As we heard po kanina from Director Elnas, we will have the final conduct of the final testing and sealing on May 2 to 7, 2022. Nandun na po yung mga VCM sa mga public schools. Doon na po gagawin yung final testing and sealing. And of course, we are doing this para malaman talaga na the VCM is functioning very well and wala pong maging aberya on the day of the elections. They will be the one to verify the identity of the voter using the EDCVL or the BRVMs. Yung po BRVMs, hindi na po natin gagamitin this coming elections. Ito po yung ginamit in 2019. They will conduct the voting, of course, and administer the electronic counting of votes. Print election returns. They will be the one to supervise and control the conduct of the elections. This will be challenging po, no? This kind of functions of the teachers this pandemic kasi nga po as we have heard kanina, baka po 10 to 15 ang ating voters at one time in each classroom. Tama po sa DICT, USEC, Manika Intake na sana po mas mabawasan para hindi po maging congested yung ating mga voting centers sa loob ng classroom. Tapos meron din pong functions and powers ang ating mga electoral boards to maintain order. So biruin nyo magiging double yung kanilang magiging trabaho. Maintaining peace and order at the same time maintaining the safety protocols dahil mayroon tayong COVID-19 pandemic still existing. So talagang medyo challenging po itong elections na to. They will furnish watchers, copies. They will also perform such other functions. Gusto ko rin pong i-share na same naman rin po yung ating mga preference with regard to the electoral boards. Sabi ko nga po kanina, public school teachers and preference, and then kung wala naman pong available, which is quite impossible because our public school teachers, based on the latest data, meron po tayong 838,142 public school teachers nationwide. Of course, hindi po ito, halo-halo po ito. So, meron mga comorbidities, meron mga hindi pa vaccinated, pero I think we have enough public school teachers really to volunteer and handle. Considering last 2019, we have only 370,000 electoral boards. So more or less kaya po kung talagang mag-volunteer lahat. And gusto ko na rin pong i-share na the PNPKI or the digital signatures po ng DICT, the DepEd also has coordinated with DICT and Comelec, and we have come out with the learning management system na kung saan po sa DepEd, yung ating mga teachers ay amin pong pinag-apply ng digital signatures para po sa mga magiging electoral board. And as of October 29, 2021, meron po kaming data na sinabit sa DICT na meron na po kaming halos 658,893 public school teachers already applied for the digital signature. And these are still increasing by reason of the ongoing application po ng PNP-KI. And we know this will be used during the elections, and we are really encouraging our teachers to apply and be registered sa PNP-KI para po at least for this coming elections and for future elections, meron na po sila mga digital certificates. And maganda rin naman po ang preference kasi kung talagang wala na pong mag-serve, nandiyan naman po ang ating PNP as deputized electoral board sa mga lugar na talagang hindi po magkaroon ng mga teachers na available or by reason of security and safety ay hindi makapag-serve po. Marami po kasing mga lugar din ang na-identify na baka hindi po mag-serve ang mga teachers dahil sa fear sa danger po ng kanilang safety and security. Let me share our honoraria last 2019, which was according to the RA 10756 or the ESRA law. Noong pong 2019, ang ating honoraria sa ating chairperson ay 6,000 pesos. Ang member po, meaning yung Paul Kirk and the third member, 5,000 pesos. DepEd Supervisor Official or DESO, sila po yung nagmamanage ng ating mga presinto. Actually, ito po yung mga principal or supervisor ng DepEd. 4,000 pesos po. Yung support staff po nila, 2,000 pesos. And of course, marami na rin po kasing technical support staff from DepEd ang na-hire and undergone training. So meron din po silang 2,000 pesos. All of them have received 1,000 allowance for travel, transportation, and yung pong ating technical support staff, because of the nature of their work, they also have 1,000 additional communication allowance. Yan po ay noong 2019. As I can show you po, meron pong improvement po yan, meron pong additional as approved by our Comelec. According po sa ESRA law, hindi naman po nabago ito. Ang death benefits po sa ating mga DepEd workers, 500,000 for any death na nangyayari. Wag naman po sana, pero yan po yung ating nakalagay sa batas. Medical assistance, 500,000. Legal indemnification, 50,000. Kasama po dyan yung mga lawyer's fees, indemnification for legal expenses incurred. And of course, subject to verification po yan para maging entitled yung ating DepEd personnel na mag-a-avail. Gusto rin namin po namin i-share to everyone that we have in DepEd already proposed some increase in the honoraria in accordance with the ESRA law. Kasi po sabi sa ESRA law, every 3 years, pwede po nating i-review ang ating honoraria. So we have come out with the proposal na sana po by reason of the challenges that we will be facing. And of course, it's about time really to increase the honoraria of our teachers and some benefits. Nag-propose po ang DepEd sa Comelec na mataasan yung kanilang mga honoraria. Ito po yung aming proposal, 9,000 for the Electoral Board Chair, 8,000 for the members, for DESO, 7,000, support staff, 5,000. Medyo malaki, pero considering po na of course, we would like to request na, so we will request na po sana yung talagang tama at siguro corresponding to the challenges that they will be facing during the elections. Other than that, we have also requested Comelec for the following. Ito po ay just to let you know, ito po ay request namin sa Comelec before the budget deliberations ng Comelec. So, of course, all of these requests is subject to the approval of the budget of Comelec. So, yung hazard pay na 500 per day, parang COVID-19 hazard pay, request po namin yan. Eventually, and luckily and fortunately, and unfortunately na grant po yan ng Comelec. Maraming salamat po. Then, yung grant of special risk allowance, medyo yung 25%, hindi pa rin po dahil meron nga pong budget constraints. Yung affording food and water allowance amounting to 1,000 pesos per day. Hindi pa rin po, pero we are really praying na magkaroon ng significant increase ng budget ng Comelec para po mabigay po ito. Dahil isa po ito sa mga nakikita namin concern, yung pagkain at tubig ng ating mga election workers. Bakit? Yung electoral board po natin, lalo na nga yung election, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., and sa dami ng botante, ay sigurado pong magugutom at mauuhaw sila. And of course, kung kukunin pandala sa honoraria nila yan, pabili ng pagkain, tapos subject pa to tax, medyo hindi na rin po magandang take home po nila yan. So, ang sa amin po, if ever, magkaroon sana ng allowance for their food and water, and maiwasan na rin po yung, kasi ang mga teachers po natin, minsan, nabibigyan ng mga pagkain ng ating mga candidates, nabibigyan po ng mga tubig, pagkain na may mga pangalan ng kandidato. And minsan nakakalimutan nila na wag itong tanggapin dahil na rin siyempre sayang naman kung itatapon. Pero may mga instances po kasi na napipicturean sila na kumakain o umiinom ng tubig na may pangalan ng kandidato. And it will be interpreted as partisan. So at least kung meron po tayong provision for them to really use those allowance for food and water, may iwasan natin yung mga teachers natin tumanggap ng mga pagkain at tubig galing po sa ating mga kandidato and their supporters. Yung provision of transportation allowance na 2,000 pesos, happy po kami na nag-grant po ito. From 1,000, naging 2,000 na po ang Electoral Board transport allowance and their staff, pati po ang DESO. Kung noon, 500 po pagkuha ng paraphernalia at mga materials, ngayon po 1,000, pagbalik 1,000 din po. So, ganun po magiging arrangement. Unlike before, yung 5-day service credits, nandiyan naman po yan sa batas. We are just requesting na parang kung po pwede, minimum yung 5 days. Kung po pwede yung madagdagan pa. Of course, subject to existing civil service rules on service credits and the policy of DepEd on granting those kinds of service credits. Health insurance coverage, we are still praying po na ito ay maibigay. Provisions of vitamins and other immune boosting supplements. In addition to the RT-PCR test, and of course, we are praying and requesting Comelec that magkaroon sana ng mga vitamins yung ating mga election workers. Not only the electoral boards, but every election workers para po medyo ano naman po sila protected, fortified yung kanilang mga katawan given the task that they will have during the elections. Ito po yung isa, yung sabi nga po ni Yussi Kaintik, yung provision of self-testing and other health services in case of meron pa naman pong COVID, hindi pa nawawala. So meron talaga tayong preparations na dapat po may mga ganoong, although we know medyo mahal, pero of course marami naman po sumusuporta na mabigyan ng ating mga teachers ng kaukulang health benefits and protection this coming elections. Gusto rin po namin i-share na Comelec, meron tayong mga personnel o election workers that are Comelec appointed or designated. And these are given honoraria based on the law and Comelec resolutions, no, relevant Comelec resolutions. But in DepEd, support to our teachers and during elections, we traditionally, for how many elections now, from 2004 onwards, we have established the DepEd Election Task Force. Yung pong DepEd Election Task Force, iba po ito sa ating mga teachers at saka sa mga field personnel na na-appoint ng Comelec. Ang DepEd Election Task Force, ito po yung ating monitoring coordination task force composed of members of non-teaching personnel naman. Kumbaga ito hindi mga teachers, ito mga non-teaching natin from the central office, regional offices, division offices, and DepEd, which were designated by the DepEd to monitor and coordinate sa field. So, gaya po ng nasabi ko, these are DepEd Election Task Force, so necessarily, wala pong budget ang DepEd for this kasi hindi naman po kami mandated to work on elections, yung ating mga non-teaching. And we just do this para po may additional manpower support and real-time reporting yung ating mga field officials and employees sa nangyayari sa ground. Meron po kaming mobile applications to develop on that, which was used 2019. Nagkaroon po kami ng real-time reporting sa mga presinto. Dahil na rin po sa kanila, we were able to record all the events, kung merong maganda o masamang mangyari, o merong mga news na merong mga nangyaring harassment. Nare-report po yan sa DepEd Central Office Task Force by virtue of these mobile applications. Now, ang request po namin sa Comelec, and we're still hoping na sana ay mabigyan din ng kaukulang pansin din po, although I know they are working on it, na magkaroon kami ng additional parang honoraria for them. Nagkaroon na po kami ng proposal and I think they are studying this. Hopefully mag-grant po dahil malaking tulong po sila in maintaining the order and the the process po ng ating buong election system in the field. Now, I would like to present po yung ating matrix, no. Ito po yung 2019 honoraria and benefits, and yung ating DepEd proposal vis-a-vis, and then yung approved Comelec honoraria noong November 10, 2021, paglabas ng Comelec Resolution 10727. As you can see po, medyo mataas yung request namin from 6,000 to 9,000. The Comelec approved 7,000 for chairman ng Electoral Board. For our Electoral Board members, yung ating poll clerk and third member, from 5,000, ang increase po nila is 6,000 compared to our proposal of 8,000. Then yung ating DESO, from 4,000 in 2019, ang request po namin sana is maging 7,000 and increase po siya ng 5,000. So kung mapansin nyo, increase po siya ng tigo 1,000 sa ating mga electoral board. Support staff po, ang request namin is 5,000. Ang nag-run po nila is 3,000. Transpo, ito po yung masaya po kami dahil naging 2,000 from 1,000. Yung communication allowance po, ito po yung masaya rin dahil from 500 po noong 2019, naging 1,500 po ang ating communication allowance for the technical support staff. Then yun nga pong anti-COVID-19 allowance na request namin na wala naman, understandably wala noong 2019, ay 500. Ito po ay nag-grant ng Comelec. So ito po yung matrix, and we communicated with Comelec that all our pending proposals be evaluated still and be studied pa rin. And we committed naman po to Comelec that we will be joining them in requesting, petitioning, begging Congress to add budget for our DepEd personnel, both our teachers and non-teaching that will be working in the 2022 national and local elections. So with that po, I would like to thank NAMPREL for this very special event for everyone, for every stakeholders, and we join you, Comelec, the ICT, and everyone who loves the elections to be peaceful and orderly, to have a successful 2022 national and local elections. Thank you very much po, and have a great morning to everyone.
Maraming salamat, Attorney Bragado. If you could stay on for the Q&A portion, also Director Elnas at si Yusek Kaintik. For our next presenter, we'd like to call on NAMFREL's very own IT guru, Mr. Lito Averia. Sir Lito, take it away.
Magandang umaga. Okay yun, Salma, IT guru. Okay. Good morning to my co-presenters, the Director Elnas. Thank you very much for a very comprehensive update on the preparations for the 2022 NLE. And thank you also to Yusek Kaintik, our designated chair, OIC chairs, CAC, as well as my friend Yusek Mark Bragado. Thank you very much also for that comprehensive presentation. Thank you very much to my colleagues at NAMPREL, especially yung ating NAMPREL Secretariat who worked so much to work. And good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And also thank you to, I'd also like to greet our reactors, the panel of reactors, Dr. Ron Mendoza, Bill Luz, si Mildred, Ople, and of course my colleagues, also in the IT industry, J.R. Contreras. So let me first share my screen. So, nagulat nga ako dito, last week lang ako na-request for this. Quite in focus in the preparations for the national elections in 2022 is COVID-proofing, owing to the ongoing pandemic. So we're not sure if the pandemic will dissipate by 2022 elections. So we're preparing for it. So, and we've drawn lessons. Comelec and other stakeholders have drawn lessons from elections held in other countries. As Director Elnas said earlier, he personally witnessed, for example, elections held in Mongolia and Kazakhstan. And then we had a Palawan plebiscite earlier this year, first quarter, where health protocols were also implemented. And very recently, a month ago, the voting simulation exercise held in San Juan City last October 23. Because of this, embedded in different set of rules, the safety protocols were embedded. For example, observation of various Comelec activities in relation to the preparation of the automated election system. Sometimes you're invited to witness or watch some activities. Also in the procurement of election-related equipment, devices, supplies. Then, of course, health and safety protocols embedded in the voter registration, local source code review, filing of certificates of candidacy, campaigns, election day operations, and random manual audit, and some other rules that the Comelec is set to promulgate. Now, let me comment on the voter registration. So the data I'm using here is based on the Comelec MediaCon held last November 25, 2021, where the Comelec reported a total number of voters at 65,531,462, comprising of new registrants, reactivation of registration and reinstatements, for a total of 8,147,080 voters. However, we note this morning, Director Elnas's figure is at 65,385 registered voters. So there's really a need to reconcile the numbers. But what was the baseline? So if you look at, for example, if we go back to 2019, Comelec figures show there were 61,843,771 voters in 2019, the 2019 NFP. And then earlier this year, in February, Comelec announced the cleansing of the voters list. So 7 million voter registrations were deactivated. So there's a net for a baseline figure of 54,843,771. So if we are to add the total additions as reported during the MediaCon of 8 million plus, this will result in a total of 62,990,851 voters, or a difference of 2.5 million. So again, there's a need to reconcile the numbers. But of course, with this difference, there's a budget implication. So there's a difference of 2.5 million. At the rate of 1,000 voters per VCM, actually, the Comelec is planning to have only 800 voters per VCM per cluster precinct. 2.5 million voters will require 2,541 VCMs. At the rate of 100,000 pesos per VCM, that's 254 million. So again, we have to double check on the numbers and be careful with the numbers. Looking at the registered voters vis-a-vis the Philippine population. As of 2020, the PSA reports 109,947,900 Filipinos. And from there, we extract the number of qualified voters in terms of age, 18 years old and above, is at 70.5 million. If we use the reported number of registered voters based on the MediaCon held recently, at 65 million, there's a difference of 4.9 million voters. Again, this unregistered but qualified voters did not make the cutoff because of a problem with some problems that I will raise later. Or they live far from the city or municipal centers and have encountered transport and financial challenges in going to the centers, city centers or municipal centers. Or they are simply unaware of their right to vote or simply do not want to participate in the electoral exercise. As to schedules, the period of registration was up to September 30, 2021. Sporadic lockdown announcements caused registration to be suspended in many areas. But of course, the voter registration was extended to October 30, 2021. Leveraging on the technology, registration forms were made available on Comelec's website, ready for download, to be printed and filled out but not signed, because personal appearance was still required in compliance with the mandatory biometrics registration law, or RA 10367. The option was for applicants to secure their appointments, but they encountered difficulties due to congestion in the scheduling system. And then, of course, health and safety protocols needed to be observed and complied with. The Comelec also set up registration or satellite registration centers, but mostly in malls. On the right is the sample of schedules of those satellite registration. After the 2019 elections, registration centers were also set up at the barangay levels from August 1 to September 30, 2019, preparing for the barangay elections, which was again postponed to a much later date. The question here is for the 2022 elections, was registration brought closer to the unregistered qualified voters, especially at the barangay level? In terms of voter experience, there were reports that registrants waited in long queues. In some instances, applicants started to line up at around 12 midnight, some as early as 9 p.m. So this raises an issue on the appointment system or the lack of information or guidance to registrants or applicants. In one instance, an applicant downloaded his form, filled it up using his computer, but then when presented to the EO, it was rejected. He was advised to fill up the form by hand. So again, it's an issue of rules, clear rules. Many were denied registration because Comelec offices can serve only a maximum number of applicants per day, which raises an issue on lack of resources. Resources like computers, biometric capture devices, including cameras. And again, registrants experienced difficulty in booking schedules. Was it a question of servers? Maybe the use of the cloud would have helped to solve the resource issues. In terms of voter education, a number of groups, CSOs, including media, run their own voter education programs. But this should go beyond just how to vote, how voters make informed decisions. So NAMFREL had developed the Vote for Us website, and here's the link, which aims to provide users with the information they need. The NAMFREL team is creating content for the voters, and will continue to create the contents as we approach the elections. But some contents, however, are contingent on information requested from Comelec. In terms of political ads and candidacies, we recently witnessed exploitation of regulatory gaps and the challenge of regulating the use of technology. Early political ads, in 2021, there were a lot of ads on TV, radio, print, promoting, politicians promoting their accomplishments and future plans or their platforms. But this demonstrates how expensive it is to run in an election. So on the right is the top spenders. The question is, why are they spending so much and how will they recover the expenses? Voters should really consider this as red flags. Political ads are also filling up social media spaces. My own social media accounts have turned certain differently, certain colors. And Comelec had issued Resolution 1073, which regulates the use of social media for campaign purposes, requiring candidates and political parties or coalitions to register all their social media accounts and blogs, and bans micro-targeting. So there's a deadline for the registration. We'll check this out if the political parties and candidates had complied with the registration requirement. And then, of course, during the filing of certificates of candidacy, there was the use of emergency alert SMS, which is reserved for use only for emergency purposes, especially by the NDRRMC, or the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council. And of course, the use of text blasters. So the challenge here is, how do you regulate the use of text blasters and SMS, and of course, other technologies? In terms of substitution, we also saw that recently. The Comelec, of course, anticipated the unprecedented substitutions. But this substitution displayed the power of powerful maneuvers in settling their candidates, getting their candidates in. And the movements from one political party to another in shifting alliances demonstrate severely weakened or non-existent political party system, and puts to question the seriousness of aspirants in really running for a post. Because we saw that some of those who earlier filed their candidacies and withdrew were really just placeholders. So this may be a subject for electoral reform. In terms of the automated election system preparation, Director Elnas gave us a taste earlier of the preparations, including preparations on the automated election system. But we know that the automation of elections is a national scale IT project. And this is the fifth one. The 2022 national elections is the fifth electoral exercise that will be held using an automated election system at the national scale. And IT projects require management skills, especially in the areas of project management, change management, disasters, and business continuity management. And of course, technical skills such as systems analysis and design, programming, database management, network administration, and others. The first four automated election exercises provided various important lessons, which led to changes in the software and system. So issues in previous implementation of the AES, especially in 2016 and in 2019, these were the major issues. And Comelec management, put to question the Comelec management and technical response to the problems that arose, especially during the live operations of the AES. Okay. So the question is, what are the adjustments made to the contingency plans for 2022? I am a business continuity practitioner, and usually we have drills when we come up with contingency plans. Will this be done by the Comelec? So I hope the Comelec also does a drill for the 2022 elections to address problems that may arise during live operations of the AES. And because of this, of course, the Comelec organization continues to learn new skills in the process, like social media skills, not just as a user, but as a regular regulator of what candidates and political parties can do. And then, of course, information technology skills to better manage and operate the AES. Okay. For the local source code review, once again, the Philippine Computer Society reiterated its call for the removal of the non-disclosure agreement in order for interested parties or groups to participate in the local source code review and to make the process transparent. In the ongoing LSCR, the observation area is separate from the review area. Video feed is provided, but audio is not provided, so making the process less transparent. In terms of digital signing, as earlier discussed by UNCUT and also by Director Ernest earlier, that digital signing, the proper digital signing, not by machines but by election workers, will be implemented in the AES for the 2022 national and local elections. And as we are presenting here, the registration of election workers, the PNPKI, or the Philippine National Public Key Infrastructure, which is the infrastructure that enables digital signing, the election workers are being registered, and they will have training on how to execute digital signatures. Now, question for the digital signing or digital signatures is, the stakeholders who will be receiving copies of the election returns through the transparency server, will they be able to verify the identity of the signers? And will rules on the authentication of digitally signed election returns be issued by Comelec? We know that the law that authorized the use of an automated election system, RA 8436 as amended by RA 9369, provides that the digitally signed, electronically transmitted election returns, as well as the certificates of canvass, shall be the basis for official proclamation of winning candidates. So, the transmission of these election reports, of course, need proper authentication. So, with the digital signatures, will the rules on authentication of election reports be issued? As to election workers, maybe I can skip this because Yusek Bragado had gone through this. But of course, significantly, again, they will be using digital signatures. This is something new for them. But what if they forget their passwords to digitally sign? What will happen? What backup measures will be in place on election day? In terms of the AES implementation calendar, of course, the pandemic had impacted the execution and completion of scheduled activities, resulting in delays due to sporadic changes in quarantine status, especially in the NCR. But of course, we see the agility of Comelec in adjusting, and they're still pushing to complete these scheduled activities. So I'd say this is my last slide. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Sir Lito. So far, we have listened to our panelists sharing perspectives representing key components of the electoral system. Now let's go to our panel of reactors. May I call on the Dean of the Ateneo School of Government, Dr. Ron Mendoza.
Thank you very much, Salma, and thank you very much to our colleagues from NAMFREL for the kind invitation to join you today, and to our colleagues in Comelec for facing the Herculean efforts to prepare us for the very important elections in May 2022. Rather than share comments, I would just like to raise a few questions in addition to those already raised by our colleagues in the chat box, and I hope I just add a few more items there that are hopefully also important for clarification. My first question is it possible for Comelec to move the mock elections for first week of January to ensure stronger participation from election stakeholders? My second question is, based on Comelec's time and motion study, how long will the voting hours be if we have a maximum of 10 voters at any given time inside the polling place? The idea here is, do we have enough hours on that voting day for this very strict rule? The third question is, aside from the health protocols being put in place, what is the plan of the Comelec to improve the management of crowds in the vicinity of the voting centers? So not necessarily just the holding areas, but as we have experienced before, typically outside voting centers, there are congregations of small groups of people. And we wonder whether there will be rules to govern those types of behaviors by our, the different people. Number 4, what is the contingency plan, if any, should there be an actual surge of COVID cases or the emergence of a new, more infectious variant such as Omicron, which is now getting media attention, not just here in the Philippines, but also in Europe and other places in the world? Can we still hold elections if the government declares a lockdown? In short, do we have backup protocols, and how will Comelec make a decision on this front? Number 5, is Comelec contemplating forming its own health advisory group to help ensure its independence in assessing the situation for the campaign period and during the election day itself? And we consider, of course, the constitutionally mandated duty of Comelec to maintain its very strong independence in terms of preparing for and holding the elections. And given how important vaccination is to the confidence and safety of voters, is Comelec also taking steps to monitor and ensure the timely and equitable access to vaccination across Philippine regions, and particularly those regions with still very low vaccination rates? So we understand that this is not necessarily Comelec's direct mandate, but perhaps greater transparency on these allocations, because of their important links to voter confidence, may actually be an important role for Comelec. So we're interested in Comelec's thinking in this matter. Number 6, what steps can we take to make sure that the social protection and ayuda are not politicized in the run-up to the elections and on election day itself? And finally, and I speak for our group Participate, which is a pro-democracy coalition of over 2,500 organizations who are very much willing to help Comelec in its Herculean task. What can pro-democracy stakeholders do to support Comelec in its preparations for the elections? And we help support a higher budget for Comelec. As you know, we were one of the advocates to try and ensure enough resources for the COVID proofing of the 2022 elections. How can we further support in the allocation and expenditure of these resources so that we get the full effect to protect our voters and ensure a fair and safe elections for May 2022? I leave it there, and I very much thank our colleagues from Comelec for the very detailed presentation that they gave earlier, and we look forward to the engagement in the weeks going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Mendoza. Let's call on the next reactor, Mr. Guillermo Bill Luz, the chairman of Livable Cities Challenge. Mr. Luz?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank NAMFREL for inviting me to join this forum, and I want to thank the Comelec, the ICT, and DepEd for the and Lito Averia for the detailed presentations. It is a daunting task in a normal year and a much tougher task in a pandemic situation. So I share a lot of the same questions and concerns that Ron made. So I'll just kind of add to that and risk repeating a few. One is, of course, I'm hoping that all the teachers are not only fully vaxxed, but given the boosters well before the elections. Those who were given vaccinations early this year should be eligible by December or at the latest, maybe January, February, to receive the booster. So I would recommend that the teachers, the Board of Election Inspectors, all the election workers actually get their boosters because they are frontline workers. Um, I'm wondering whether there's been more thought given to the voting hours. I know it was mentioned by director that it's 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. But with social distancing and some restricted movement, would it be possible to extend the uh, the voting hours? I don't know if it's possible to even change voting days because I think those are set in the Constitution, if I'm not mistaken, or by law. So that might be a little more difficult, but certainly hours. I think operationally, uh, I'm wondering whether Comelec has considered creating. It's hard with the precincts setup, but uh, lines which are uh, divided between fully vaccinated and partially or unvaccinated people, no, because the throughput might be faster if we're dealing with a fully vaccinated line, and more protocols might have to be put in place for an unvaccinated line. But those are some. But I know that's going to be a problem because we all line up by precinct, not by vaccination status. And Lito already showed the budgetary implications on getting more machines. So I don't think that's really practical at this stage to get more machines. Speaking of the machines, I think I noticed that the numbers of the registered voters uh, has is kind of a bit different depending on the date of the presentation. At what point will we know when it's locked in that we have a final number on the RVs? And I I was looking at the RVs. It sounds impressive that we've had a a big increase, but actually there were so many delisted anyway that the net increase is not really that big, especially when we compare it to the population. My last two comments are really my major concerns. One is that in the 2019, or maybe three concerns. In the 2019 elections, we had about a 5 to 7 hour glitch, which I think nobody really understood what happened. And we're not even sure why it's called a glitch because it seems that we just had radio silence for all these hours when no reports were coming out. But by the time the reports came out, there was a big jump in the results. And so obviously, there must have been some data processing ongoing, but no public reporting. Uh, no one has really received a good explanation of what happened, and so I'm wondering uh, what is being done to prevent such a glitch from happening again, because I really think the silence really does not inspire confidence. I think among voters. The other item I'd like to really support is this idea of more transparency at the precinct level, where in the old days, at least we got to witness the appreciation of the ballot and the counting at the precinct level. So we knew what the counts were at the precinct level before they were transmitted. So I think I'm wondering whether we can have some form of a hybrid where there's some more transparency introduced at the precinct level before the automatic or digital transmission up to the boards of canvassers and the final tally. And I fully support the idea of NAMFREL to place QR codes on the election returns so that we can just take a picture as a citizen, as a voter. We can take a picture of those QR codes and find out what happened in our precinct. But more importantly, we can combine all and do a summation of all the different QR codes photographed uh, by people and come up with a quick count, and that'll be at least something that can be publicly reported should another glitch happen. Because I don't think this election is so important. I don't think we can afford even an hour to 2 hours of radio silence on the numbers when people might be feeling that you're not so comfortable with how things are being processed. So I like the idea of the QR code that we take pictures, we share all the pictures, say with NAMFREL, and then NAMFREL posts the summation of those figures and breaks it down by region, by province, by LGU, by city municipality. We're going to have a great deal more transparency. So let me leave it at that, and I'm sure there are going to be a lot more questions later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Luz. In the panel today is Attorney Mildred Ople, representing Youth-Led PH. Ms. Ople, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you to the NAMPREL team for this opportunity to participate as a panel reactor in this significant and timely event to update election stakeholders of the 2022 elections. Before I proceed with my sharing, let me briefly introduce the organization I represent today, Youth-Led or Youth Leadership for Democracy. It's a 5-year program funded by the United States Agency for International Development and implemented by the Asia Foundation. And it aims to increase civic engagement, leading to strengthened political participation among the young people. The program is composed of leadership development, coalition building, and civic education among the young Filipinos aged 15 to 30 years old. And our approach is anchored on positive youth development, creating an enabling and productive environment for the youth. Actually, I shared much of the, I echo actually much of the concern raised by Dean Ron and Sir Bill. But there are two key takeaways from the comprehensive sharing of our esteemed panelists that I would like to share. First, there is power in numbers. This holds especially true in an election wherein the number of votes decides everything. I'm not pertaining to the 65 million registered voters, but what led to such number during the registration period. We take pride on the youth's enthusiasm and overwhelming movement supporting the call for voters registration. This slide on your screen now shows the efforts on voters registration both in the online and offline platform that our Kabilang Casa 2022 Election Coalition contributed to such numbers. As presented by Director Elnas, with the extension of voters registration deadline alone, Comelec registered over 800,000 new registrants. And allow me to share what we have found out, speaking of number, in our National Youth Survey conducted by the Social Weather Station last March 2021, wherein we interviewed 4,900 respondents aged 15 to 30 years old, distributed among the 17 regions and key cities of our country. I would like to focus, there is much to talk about in this slide, but I would like to focus on the leader that our young people wanted to have or wanted to have for the country for the 2022 national and local elections. So they want a servant leader. 22% of the respondents answered that they want a servant leader, a coaching leader, and a delegative leader, or one that consult people, consult stakeholders to decide major policies and programs for our country. And there is also a specific topic that caught our attention in this National Youth Survey on who influences who influences the vote of the young people. We thought that social media, since it's very noisy in social media, that it influenced a lot of our young people in terms of their deciding who will they vote for the 2022 national election. However, this survey says that endorsement from family members at 54% actually will influence or say very important when the young people are considering who to vote for. The second one are the comments or insights from political experts at 29%, the endorsement of the president at 24%, and traditional media 19%, the community leaders and elders at 19%. Actually, social media places somewhere here at the fourth. So it doesn't the echo chamber that we are now experiencing among the young people, that we thought that using social media influences the vote of the young people. And as we take a look also at the who influences my stance on political issues among the young people, they also look for their family as a guide on their stance on political issues. And they also look at their family as a guide and on their support for government policies and activities. And when using social media, which plays a very crucial role since this was also taken by Comelec in their recent guidelines on election campaigns, the young people actually, we ask them to rank the activities that they do in social media. And we found out that 74% of them watch entertainment videos, 60% get updates from family and friends, 40% learn something useful, and the 4,900 respondents also answered that they have at least one social media account, and all of the 4,900 respondents have Facebook account. So while the usage of social media is prevalent among the young Filipinos ages 15 to 30, they still go to their family or their family members to discuss and before they decide on who to vote. So the one key takeaway also from this survey is that collectively the young people may not be addressing some political issues or concerns. However, when they are given or provided an opportunity to take action on issue-based activities like poverty, violence against women and children, lack of access to quality health services, and quality education, they most likely to take action on issue-based activities. So this might be helpful and useful to our colleagues here working in the voters education programs right after we finish the voters registration period with Comelec. So I will be sharing this snapshot also in our youth-led page and our youth-led website for our fellow here in this very important event to take a look at and perhaps influence also their voters registration initiatives. The second key takeaway that I would like to share on the perspective of the young people here in the 2022 national and local election is there is so much that we can do to help Comelec ensure that we will have a safe, secure, accurate, and fair elections. And the young people are willing to take the challenge as previously shared during the voters registration period. On pre-election, since we participated really significantly in the campaigns for voters registration, we thank the Comelec for providing spaces for the youth orgs of the Kabilang Ka Coalition in conducting satellite registrations and to as many voters as possible, especially the vulnerable sector, where we conducted several special registrations in the IDPs of Lanao del Sur and somewhere in Barm and part of Cotabato and Maguindanao. However, there is still a lot of spaces for youth participation that Comelec can provide for the youth to participate, especially during the mock elections. We share the concern of Dean Ron and Sir Bill if the intended number of maximum number of voters of 10 at a time will not result to disenfranchise voters during election day. So we'd be gladly participate during the mock elections as provided in the calendar of activities by Director Elnas. And also there are a lot of, in the aspect of the automated election system that is not transparent or yet given the opportunity for the young people to participate in. And in one of the MediaCon, Director James mentioned that there will be a roadshow or caravan to promote transparency of the system and also to promote trust on the system on AES. So the young people will be gladly participate on that. And especially during the election period, wherein the prevalence of fake news. So we would like very much also to know what the Comelec is doing and what will the Comelec do to address and fight fake news and other election propaganda present in the digital world. We would also like to hear on Comelec's initiative to provide a platform for fair campaigning especially on the usage of social media. In one of the MediaCon, Director Jimenez also mentioned that they'll provide a platform wherein the candidates can promote their programs or programs and platform of governance. And on the accreditation for the conduct of debates, both in the national and local level, would also like to hear on Comelec on what their plans are and how the young people can participate in, especially that we have gathered a lot of youth agenda from among the youth assemblies and voters registration sessions that we are conducting nationwide. And of course, the young people are very instrumental in a lot of the election monitoring activities conducted by both NAMFREL and PPCRV during the past elections. I myself is a volunteer of NAMFREL for quite some time, since the 2010 national and local election. And post-election, we would like to continue, of course, our engagement with Comelec, particularly in lobbying for repeal or amendment of election laws, especially the harmonization of the Voters Registration Act with the automated election law. So we hope and we would be very much glad to take a more active role, even if it's not election period with Comelec. And while the results of the approaching elections might not have an immediate effect, they will in the 6 years or 3 years for the case of local election. So more and more younger people are convinced to cast a vote, and whether by organizational campaign or familial persuasion or social media, we will actively participate in ensuring an equitable and uncorrupted political process to aid local communities in building a better nation. So one voters empowerment movement at a time. Again, thank you, NAMFREL, for this opportunity to be one of your panel reactors in today's forum.
Thank you, Attorney Mildred. To round off the panel of reactors, may I call on NAMFREL's very own, Mr. Fernando Contreras Jr., to give his perspectives on the conduct of elections and the readiness of Comelec. Mr. Contreras?
Thank you very much, Attorney Salma. My portion is really on the technology side. I'd like to reiterate again the 5 standards that we've been proposing to Comelec as part of NAMFREL's support to enhance the credibility and the quality of election. We've heard from several groups about their past concerns. Like 2 elections ago, we had the hash code issue or the ENYA issue, and the last election was the 7-hour glitch, as they called it. At NAMFREL, as early as the first half of this year, we submitted the 5 proposals, which we presented to the press also, to help alleviate this issue and provide concrete solutions to potentially solve those problems. Let me share those 5 standards that we're proposing again. Hold on. So I won't go into this into full detail. We've been presenting this as early as June. In fact, we've submitted this proposal to Comelec, and we proposed this also through the Comelec Advisory Committee. First is we propose the use of open source license. Although this might be too late because the source code review has started, this will help us have better quality of source code review. The next concern is to do a ballot format standard. Two points in the ballot formatting that we're proposing. One is a continuous numbering of candidates regardless of position. This can help us solve issues. For example, one of the technical challenges we're trying to address is the non-votes on the vice presidential position. So from around 2 million, it increased to around 3 million from the 2010 and the 2016 election. Come 2022, how many no votes for the vice presidency would happen if we will still use the same ballot formatting? So our recommendation is just to do continuous ballot numbering for all candidates. So 1 to 7, for example, for the president, then 8 to whatever for the vice president, and so on and so forth. Second aspect of our ballot formatting is that we want to have it randomized rather than alphabetical. It helps in so many ways. First is you cannot do advanced campaigning based on your name. Also, we've been familiar with this as we had the issue, for example, before with the party list system. When we started the party list system, they were alphabetical, then they became creative. They placed a number 1 on their name, so they would be on top of the sorting. If we randomize it and use maybe some form of a raffle or a randomization process for all positions, this will help a lot of things. First, maybe it can help on the name recall issue, so you wouldn't be campaigning specifically on the name. It can help also on the nuisance candidate issue, same surname. There's also no advantage if your first name or last name is letter A, or no disadvantage if your first name or last name is letter Z. So that's the second. The third is the use of digital signature. We commend Comelec and DICT for trying to implement this properly after so long. I mean, the law requires a digital signature on the transmission of the ER. 2010 to 2019, they haven't implemented it. What they implemented was a digital signature provided through the machine. Right now, they're being done correctly, and hopefully this becomes the standard and norm. This will help us verify the packets of data coming from the VCM to wherever it is sent. So we commend Comelec and the ICT for implementing this, and also DepEd, because they're the one who will initially do the signature. That's part of our standards proposal. The fourth one, which we highly recommend really, is to have a QR code on both VVPAT and ER. Currently, from what we've heard from the reports of Comelec, the QR code would be implemented on the VVPAT, but not yet on the ER. I think there's still time to implement this on the ER, and it doesn't take much effort to do this, because from what we've gathered, they have an ER already on the, they have a QR code already on the ER, but the content is just a hash code. I mean, pushing it a little further by putting the results there will protect the data integrity at the precinct level, and also will empower a lot of these viewers or watchers of the election to have a snapshot of the result at the precinct level or at the source level. So that's our recommendation. We still are appealing to Comelec to consider this. I think we still have time to do it, and this will improve the participation of the people to the election process at the present level. Lastly, as a technology recommendation, we've been used, especially for the press people, we've been used to getting a process result from the transparency server. On the technical side, it's called the CSV or comma separated value. This is actually a process result already. So it came from the VCM or the PCOS before, gets processed somewhere in the middle and gets distributed as a CSV in the transparency server. We recommend that we don't process it. Let the media, let the poll watchers like NAMFREL do it, and give us the source data from the VCM. Partnering with the digital signature, this makes it a lot stronger in terms of security and integrity of data. So that's the reaction from the technical point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, JR. For this forum, we did invite the co-chair of the IATF, Undersecretary Carlo Nograles, or his duly designated representative, but unfortunately, they were not able to respond to our request to participate in the forum. So, to start off the Q&A, let me just recall the questions and issues raised by Dean Mendoza, specifically, aside from health protocols being put in place, What is the plan of the Comelec to improve the management of crowds in the vicinity of the voting centers? And related to this, what is the contingency plan, if any, should there be an actual surge of COVID cases or the emergence of a new mutant or variant during elections? Can we still hold elections despite the resurgence or the appearance of a new mutation? Can I direct the question to Director Elnas and the other members of the panel?
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you. Magandang tanong. And it's really a great challenge, a big challenge on the part of the Commission on Elections. Not only sa ngayon, but sana hindi na mangyayari by the time we will conduct the elections. But nonetheless, on the question kung anong gagawin on election day, doon sa measures to prevent the spread of this coronavirus, one is yung may nagtanong kanina, it's yung crowd control, no? Basically sa labas pa lang, PNP or AFP, as the case may be, will manage the crowd doon sa labas while they are queuing before they enter the voting centers, no? To situate that minimum health standards and protocols are complied with. Wearing of the face mask, social distancing, no? Doon pa lang sa labas. Of course, pagpasok, andun yung temperature check. And unlike before, yung experience natin, bago buboto, nagkumpul-kumpulan pa, nagchichismisan pa, nagkikwentuhan pa inside the voting center. And this time, we will not allow it to happen. Mayroon tayong mga COVID health safety protocols na naka-assign doon sa voting centers to manage and to check any situation na mayroong nagkukumpul-kumpulan to the effect na hindi pa buboto, andun lang nakatambay lang, hindi pa papasok na. This time, pagpasok, diretso sa voters assistance desk, if hindi nila alam yung presinto at saka cluster precinct nila at saka yung location, pag alam na nila, pupunta na sila. They will be directed to proceed to their respective polling places para doon na buboto sila diretso at pagkatapos ng boto, they will be advised to go and proceed to the exit na doon sa voting center na yan. No? Ini-discourage natin yung, again, yung experience natin na tatambay pa doon to the effect na isa, dalawa hanggang dadami yan, magiging problema na ang crowd control natin within the voting center. So tasking yan ng DESO, DepEd supervisor natin together with the health and safety protocol officer natin. Of course, in coordination with the AFP and PNP. Just in case mayroong magmamatigas, just in case mayroong hindi susunod, no? Sa mga COVID marshals natin na nandun sa loob or COVID health safety protocol natin, they can summon the assistance of the PNP or AFP to address the situation. More so, just in case mangyayari yung hindi susunod sa social distancing and other COVID safety protocols natin inside the polling place, the Electoral Board can summon the assistance of our PNP personnel, no, to address the situation. Doon naman sa basically it's the mandate of the Commission on Elections to conduct the election as scheduled, no? Except may mga exception yan under the Omnibus Election Code, but yung election natin is set this coming May 9, 2022. So as much as possible, because it's the mandate of the Comelec, Comelec will do its best, no, to conduct the elections despite any adversities or despite kung magsusurge ang COVID, just in case, no, God forbid, magsusurge itong virus na ito at the time of the elections. We will be in touch or in coordination with the IATF and of course the DOH for this purpose, just in case mayroong abnormal or mayroong search na mangyayari isang area, isang city or municipality to address the situation. Then, thank you po.
Maraming salamat, Director Elnas. Let me just read one question that was posted on our chat box from Ray Avellana. The work that Comelec has already done is admirable. However, it seems that Comelec could use citizens' participation to ensure that elections in 2022 will be really transparent as required by law. Many parts of the AES are still hidden from the view of the citizenry because there is no citizens group who watch over them. His question is, can we have additional safeguards put in place? For instance, overwatch on the VCMs and the logistics overwatch on the placement of the machines and materials to prevent tampering. Also, maybe a citizens' parallel count that emanates from the VVPAT just to countercheck the ERs generated by the VCMs and consolidated at the official Comelec counting centers. Can we hear a response from Director Elnas, please?
Yeah, maganda yung layunin, ma'am, no? Transparency will erase any iota or any doubt as far as the process is concerned. Now, as far as the deployment of the VCMs, right after matapos yung pre-lat, matapos yung technical preparations doon sa Santa Rosa, all of this na doon sa presentation, all of this dadalhin sa different hubs or sub-hubs or provincial hubs natin. No? And doon pwedeng bantayan ng citizens arm, pwedeng bantayan ng mga political parties and candidates while nakastore ang mga VCM natin doon sa mga provincial or regional hubs. And along that line, by the time it will be deployed to the different polling places, pwede nilang escortan yan, pwede nilang bantayan from the hubs or provincial or regional hubs, pwede nilang bantayan at the time when all of these VCMs will be deployed to the different polling places for final and testing and sealing. Pwede silang mag-observe during the final testing and sealing. And after that, pwedeng bantayan pa rin nila yung mga VCMs that will be deposited doon sa voting center while waiting for the day of elections to come. No? So hanggang sa voting, pwede silang nandun hanggang sa pag-retrieve ng mga ballot boxes natin. And of course, pag-print ng election returns hanggang pag-transmit, hanggang paghatid ng mga hard copies ng election returns natin to the different city or municipal boards natin. Okay? Doon naman sa deployment of machines.
BBPAT based.
Yung sa BBPAT naman, this time yung BBPAT natin, yung data na ipiprint natin at this sa BBPAT, by the time the results from the different precincts will be transmitted to the transparency server. It's not only the result or the election returns that will be transmitted to the transparency server, that includes also the BBPAT, no, na nakastore doon sa BCM mismo, kasama sa ngayon na itatransmit sa transparency server, which can be availed of by citizens arm or any interested party for purposes of processing the data and other legitimate purposes na pwedeng gagawin. Isa sa mga innovation natin ngayon yan, yung kasama ang resulta ng BBPAT na isa transmit kasama doon sa election returns. Thank you po.
Maraming salamat, Director Elnas. From the audience, can I call on Ms. Marnie Tonson from Tagapagtanggol ng Watawat for your question?
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am.
Ano po yun?
Doon lang, excuse lang muna, ma'am. May I interrupt, ma'am?
Go ahead, Director Elnas.
Doon lang sa sa registered voters natin, ma'am, no? Medyo may variance yan, etc. It's because hindi pa final. Yung sinabi ko kanina, practically it's not yet final figure, no, that will be loaded to the EMS natin. As of now, we're still on the process of verification doon sa project of precincts natin at the municipal and city level natin, no. Magdadatingan yan, on the process yan, and the final data will be submitted to the Unbank for approval before December 15, 2021. So yung data kanina, ma'am, it's the last ERB yan, pero subject pa yan ng modification because one is yung mga na-approve na transfer from other areas, magsisidatingan pa yan, and there will be deletion on the part of the election officers and verification ng project of precincts natin. And hopefully, before December 15, ma-finalize natin yung pre-OP, yun yung final data na ilalabas din natin, approved ng NBank, and iloload yan sa election management system natin sa Santa Rosa. Thank you po.
Maraming salamat, Director Elnas. At tagapagtanggol ng Watawat, you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you. I just have a few questions. The first question is with regard to the DOST training that's going to be given for information technology. I was wondering why is it DOST and not DICT? It's just one small question, but I have other questions. More importantly, with regard to the information that's inside the transmissions. Because my understanding is it was explained that the transmissions will be really small. So we in tagapagtanggol ng Watawat were wondering why does the Comelec need I think the amount is 1 billion. They're asking for 1 billion for servers in order to process these really small amounts of information. Because my understanding is the machines are really the data is really small, and it's going to be sent through the VCM through cell phone technology. Then it's going to be processed on laptops, and the CCS is going to be through laptops also. And when it comes to the Comelec servers, you need something that costs around 1 billion pesos. It's kind of jarring to think that we already have small data packets, and you would need some sort of new technology in order to process data that's sent through cell phone technology. And lastly, with regard to the QR codes, we fully support the idea of putting QR codes on the election returns. But might I suggest that the QR codes not only contain the election results, but also the time of transmission? Because under the Automated Election Systems Act, what controls is the transmitted results, which is called the electronic returns. Now, the electronic returns should match with what's in the QR code. So might I suggest that you put in the date and time of transmission to make sure that the QR code matches with the transmission. Thank you.
Director Eldas, please.
Those are the technical issues and concerns, no. Thank you for that, sir, for that recommendations and suggestions, no. And I know that it would help ensure and build confidence on the part of the stakeholders, no, if all those things are in place, no. But yung question na why that huge amount of budget is required for purposes of conducting or transmitting the election returns. Now, be it remembered that hindi lang 2 or 4 or 10 BCMs ang pinag-usapan natin dito. Probably by the end of by the time we will finalize the project of precincts, we might as well reach 105 or 106,000 BCM, and all of these BCMs kakabitan niya ng transmission device, no? Whether globe, smart, or sun, or worst case scenario, kung walang internet connectivity ang area na yan, bigan ang gagamitin, no? We will be using satellite facilities just to make sure that there will be electronic transmission. That's as far as the BCM is concerned, or polling precincts is concerned. Pangalawa dyan is yung gagamitin as far as the city or municipal board of canvassers natin. That's more or less 1,600 plus. No, 1,600 plus cities and municipal board of canvassers. So again, gagamit din ng transmission facilities yan, and that includes either DSL or VSAT, no? VSAT for areas na walang connectivity, no, walang signal. So VSAT again, gagamit din yan ng satellite facilities just to ensure that there will be transmission of results from the city or municipal board of canvassers up to the provincial board of canvassers. Pagdating naman sa provincial board of canvassers, that's 81 PBOC na magpa-process, mag-receive, and mag-transmit from the provincial level up to the national board of canvassers. Again, gagamit din either DSL or VSAT, no? So that's one. Pangalawa is yung mga gagamitin o ginagamit doon sa tatlong servers natin, no? Mayroong mga load balancers yan, mayroong servers, mayroong switches, and other technical facilities na kinakailangan, no? So I think yun yung nagpapalaki doon sa budgetary requirements for purposes of transmitting the results. Thank you po.
Maraming salamat, Director Elnas. A question from Rappler. Comelec guidelines on in-person campaigning say a permit issued by the LGUs is one of the documents needed by the candidates when submitting an application to Comelec campaign committees on the conduct of motorcades and rallies. Comelec spokesperson Jimenez has said LGUs can only deny permits if a prior permit for the same time and location has already been approved. But what will happen if the LGUs nonetheless deny a permit request by the incumbents' rivals? What remedy can challengers of the incumbents seek? Mr.
No, magandang tanong, and usual actually sa Omnibus Election Code, it requires yung ordinary issuance of permit by the local government unit, no? So ang lang dyan is the only reason for the LGU to deny the permit to hold rally is that yung petsa na at saka lugar kung saan sila gustong mag-rally is mayroong naibigay na permit. Same time, same day, same venue. Now, just in case, whimsical, walang reason, no? Hindi pasok doon sa reason na sinasabi, no? They can elevate the matter to the provincial election supervisor, no? To redress the grievances, no? Para ma-address yung situation na yan. Okay? Iakyat lang yung para if in case whimsical or hindi pasok doon sa reason na still Comelec na ang magsasabi na bibigyan na ng permit. Thank you po.
Maraming salamat, Director Elnas. I'd like to go back to the issues raised by Bill Luz, specifically on the 5-hour glitch that happened last elections. He posited the question, what are the safeguards instituted by Comelec to prevent a similar glitch from happening in 2022? Director Elnas?
Thank you po, ma'am. Basically, we don't want at the time when nangyari yung situation na yan, we don't want to repeat the experience natin doon sa 2016 na na-discover yung ENYE at the instance of those in charge doon sa transmission, doon sa transparency server, made some corrections. So at the time, 2019, nung nangyari yung, actually there were transmissions were done from the precinct level to transparency server. The only problem is that the transparency server did not push the results to the different workstations ng media, workstations ng political parties and citizens arm. Doon hindi nag-push yung results. But at the time, nakita ng media yun na ongoing yung transmission, ongoing yung pag-receive ng transparency server ng mga results from the different precincts or polling places. Bakit umabot tayo ng 7 hours? Again, sinasabi ko na we don't want to venture, correcting or making some technical adjustments on the system without the approval of the NBank. So ako yung head doon, minabuti ko na to ask authority and permission because it's not pure and simple na patayin mo gaya ng cellphone na naghang, patayin mo lang, i-open mo, i-on mo ulit, gagana lang. No? So sinubukan yon enough, inon, but still hindi pa rin nag-push yung results to the workstation. So with that, I decided to communicate the matter to the NBank for proper authority and approval for the technical personnel of Comelec and Smartmatic na ayusin yung technical problem doon mismo sa system. So yun yung isa sa that made it 7 hour. Actually it's the yung process kasi gabi yun, I think it's mga 7 o'clock nung nag-search yung result. So nabulunan yung pag-push ng results to the different workstation. So we have the NBank has to consult with each other through the chairman until such time na naipalabas yung authority ng technical and transmission group to do some technical corrections to remedy the problem. Thank you po.
Thank you, Director Elnas. Yes, Mr. Bill Luz, I think may follow-up siya.
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Attorney Sama. Thank you, Director. That's precisely my concern. We have the so-called transparency server, but if it is not forwarding the information to the workstations for the media and the others, then there's no transparency at all. So I think just to kind of work around that, one solution which I really support is this matter of having the QRs on the election return, because in case something happens upstream, we could go back and look at that QR code. We pick up all the information. There's already a record, including the timestamp. And if the QR codes were summarized by an independent group, you could actually have a citizens parallel count that will be running based on the counting machines at the ground level, so that at least we will prevent another mishap like we did in 2019, when clearly the servers were still processing. It was just not giving out the data publicly. So, when it shut down, it was about 1% of the votes counted. When it turned on, it was like a huge percentage, and the results were done. So, there's really a big question. And that's why, for me, it even connects to, the audit, what happened to the audit report. And that's also never been made clear. So I think we need to put in all these transparency measures as early as we can in the process. Thank you.
Director Elnas.
Thank you for that, sir. Actually, right after that incident, PPCRB was allowed through Comelec and Bank resolution to look into the logs of the server. And for purposes of the 2022 national and local elections, dodoblehin ng Comelec together with the provider yung stress test, yung simulation, yung volume ng testing natin so that hindi na mauulit yung nangyayari na nabulunan, no? Nabulunan yung pag-push ng result from the transparency server to the workstations ng political parties, citizens arm, and the media. Thank you po.
Director, just one last point maybe is that maybe as a matter of practice, we should have a separate group that does the audit from the group which does the count. It's a bit difficult if you have the same group that do the count and its own audit. Maybe we should have an external group do the audit. That I think you will have more independence in that way. Thank
Well
you.
taken, sir. Thank you, sir.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Bill Luz. A question again for Director Elnas from ABS-CBN, Ina Reformina. Wearing of face shields at the polling places shall be mandatory since there will be a convergence of huge volumes of people in the polling places. So what will be the impact on the voting process or protocols, if any, of a stricter or the strictest alert level classification that would be in effect in a particular area on election day? So is there any contingency plan for this?
Now, as far as the general instructions for the electoral boards on the conduct of voting and transmission of results, it requires the wearing of face shield and face mask. No? Andun yon in place na. Now, as far as the contingency plan is concerned, Comelec is now on the process of drafting and finalizing this contingency plan from deployment up to the final testing and sealing, verification of the ballots, hanggang sa pag-transmit ng results, conduct of elections at the polling places, at the voting centers. No? Pina-finalize ngayon yan. We're gathering some inputs from other stakeholders on that, and hopefully all of these things, including this situation, yung COVID proofing natin, just in case magsa-surge yung COVID in an area, will be in place to the effect that we can still conduct, or we will be conducting elections despite the situation po, as mandate ng Comelec. Thank you po.
Maraming salamat, Director Elnas. From CNN Philippines, ito ho, for all the panelists, how many voters is Comelec hoping to invite for the mock elections in December? And what will you do to encourage a high turnout given that last month's simulation had very few participants?
Thank you, CNN Philippines. Now, for purposes of, by the way, ma'am, no, may question kanina, isama ko na rin, bakit hindi ba pwedeng i-reset natin yung schedule ng mock elections?
Kay Dean Mendoza yun.
Yeah, from December to January. No? One is yung budgetary requirements natin. No? Yung mock elections, nakasama yon sa budget natin sa National Expenditure Program ng Comelec 2021. So sa 2022, hindi na siya nakasama ang mock elections. No? So that's why mahirap nating iusog yan. It's because walang pondo na gagamitin to conduct the mock elections. And tandaan natin, yung mock elections as appeared doon sa screen natin kanina, it's not only within NCR na gaganapin yung mock elections. Mayroon tayong areas in Luzon, mayroon tayong areas in Visayas and Mindanao. And of course, pag magkakandak tayo ng mock elections, andun yung deployment ng BCM, funds and supplies, plus mga tao. No? So, medyo hingin namin yung pag-unawa sa inyo na we will be conducting these mock elections within the year 2021. Okay. Now, ano pa to? Yung sa mock elections, there will be 100 voters, actual registered voters that will participate in the mock elections. And these mock elections will be conducted right at the voting centers kung saan dinesignate ng Comelec. And of course, it will be conducted by actual public school teachers na. using the entire process from voting, consolidation, printing of ERs hanggang pag-transmit from precinct, municipal, city, and provincial hanggang sa national level po. Except yung area natin sa Pasay, full yung number of registered voters na mag-participate doon, sinesimulate natin. No? Maximum kung ilan yung number of registered voters in a clustered precincts, yun ang magpa-participate. And the maximum number is 800. Hopefully, inshallah, na we will encourage and intensify our info campaign for this purpose, and of course, with the help of the barangay officials and other stakeholders to the effect na ma-maximize natin yung conduct ng mock elections, unlike ng ginagawa natin sa San Juan na hindi natin fully, I have to admit it, hindi natin fully na simulate yung end-to-end na demo natin on the mock simulation because of the number of registered voters na in-expect natin, mababa yung turnout natin. Hopefully for these mock elections, with our info dissemination efforts through the EID namin and sa stakeholders, ma-maximize natin and we can achieve yung target, yung goal natin on this. Thank you po.
Maraming salamat, Director Elnas. I-revisit natin yung mga issues ni Reyes ni Dean Mendoza. This one is medyo related sa questions na sinagot ni Director Elnas. Is Comelec contemplating forming its own health advisory group to help ensure its independence in assessing the situation for the campaign period and during the election day itself? Given how important vaccination is to the confidence and safety of voters, is Comelec also taking steps to monitor and ensure the timely and equitable access to vaccination of regions which still have very low vaccination rates? Director Elna.
Yes, tama yan ma'am, no? Basically, doon sa rules natin ng general instructions natin for the Electoral Board, we give preference doon sa fully vaccinated public school teachers. Now with that, every elections naman, deputized natin yung tinutulungan kami ng DOH, no? Deputized natin, isa sa mga deputized agencies ng government natin ang DOH, and hopefully we can coordinate with them to intensify itong vaccination activities in areas na hindi pa masyadong marami ang nabakunahan, no? Until such time na we will conduct the elections, hopefully mabakunahan na lahat ng areas, no? Whether Metro Manila or outside Metro Manila, so that andun pa rin yung level of confidence natin na yung spread ng coronavirus ay hindi mangyayari, no? So aside from that, yung sa monitoring ng kasama yun sa contingency planning natin to monitor itong what will happen just in case may surge ito, yung kung may mga problema along the way, kasama yon sa contingency planning na ipapalabas ng Comelec, no? Okay. Thank you.
Ito question galing kay Mario Rivera. In the interest of transparency at the precinct level, may mga proposals to count the VVPAT which can serve as an immediate check to the ERs reported by the VCMs. To save time, the VVPAT counting may focus only on 2 national positions, for instance, President and Vice President. Is Comelec amenable to this proposal? Aside from Director Elnas, can we get the other panelists to respond?
That's a matter of policy, no? And MANC will decide through the steering committee and project management. Especially, nagawa na natin yung GI natin. But that's and ang problema lang dyan is haba yung proseso natin within the polling place. Yeah. Yun lang ang natin dyan. Haba, tapos with this COVID situation, we are expecting na lalampas sa 7 PM yung voting natin in a particular polling place.
Director Bragado, ano so sa palagay ninyo yung sa proposal na to? Nasa precinct level, yung VVPAT counting ang gagawin para ma-check yung tabulation ng ERs. Kasi apektado din ang mga BIs dito.
Yes po. Actually, I support Comelec po. It's a policy issue. Pero kung kami nga po sa DepEd ang tatalungin, as much as possible, we would like our teachers to really not be exposed to such difficulty, especially nga po challenging yung 2022 elections natin. Actually, we propose nga po to Comelec, sabihin ko na rin, no, na yung teachers po natin sana, instead of the usual isang shift lang, magdalawang shift ng group of teachers, electoral board. This is quite challenging because of the budgetary constraints of Comelec. Pero it will definitely relieve our teachers of the difficulty. Kasi usually, ma'am, hindi naman po gabi lang inaabot ang minsan ang eleksyon. Inaabot pa yan hanggang kinabukasan. Depende sa lugar at sa init ng election sa isang lugar, no? So ang proposal po namin, kung hindi naman po 6 AM nag-start talaga yan, as early as 4 AM nagpupunta na yung mga teachers natin sa kanilang mga treasurer to get the paraphernalia. So if you will compute po the 8 hours, talagang lampas-lampas po ng 8 hours ang trabaho nila. So ang suggestion po namin yung proposal, if hindi man magawa these elections in 2022, sa coming elections, magkaroon na po ng two shifts yung ating mga electoral board. One for the actual conduct of the elections and the other dun sa transmission and consolidation. Para naman po hindi sila ganun kahirap. Yun lang po ma-share ko. Pero on the question, it's really on Comelec to really decide on that matter. And we just have to accept whatever policy regulations po na talagang maipasa ng Comelec. All dyan. Thank you very much po.
Maraming salamat. How time flies when we're having fun. Sadly, ganito na lang. For the questions which were posted, we will forward it to the Comelec and the other panelists, and we will post the responses on the website ng NAMFREL. To close the forum, may I call on the Executive Director of NAMFREL, Eric Albia. Eric.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, that was a very comprehensive and detailed sharing of information, and also sharing of concerns, no? In the past 3 hours that we've run this forum. A lot of information, no, has to be processed and digested, no, and act on, no, as we approach the elections with 6 months left. Let this forum be used also not only as a feedback, but as a point for adjustments, no, to prepare for the elections, no. But one thing is clear, we've seen that at the heart of the preparations for the elections, no, Comelec is clearly doing its best, no, to make sure that there are no stones unturned, no, in the preparation, especially for the automated election system. And on the part of the reactors, it's clear that we cannot help but underscore the need for citizens' participation, no, to improve and to help our election management body. So probably let the battle cry for these preparations for the elections with 6 months left be failure is not an option, no? Because for us, no, a lot is at stake and a lot depends on our preparations. The success of the elections depends a lot on the preparations, the quality of preparations and execution that we do with the remaining months ahead. So with that, let me thank everyone for participating actively, our stakeholders, people from media, people from the business community, from the political parties, our fellow election monitoring organizations and civil society organizations for gracing this forum. I hope this is not the last, but this will be the first of a series of meetings, and probably it would spin off consultations to help Comelec also give a broader perspective and give them a better situational awareness on what's happening on the ground as they prepare for the automated elections. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you, Sir Eric. Thank you sa lahat.
Thank you, Director Pistong. Very well.
Maraming salamat.
Ang daming nalaman.
Salamat po.
Oo.
Ingat.
Maraming salamat, Pistong.
Maraming salamat, Sir.
Very comprehensive yung delivery mo, yung information.
Thank you, sir.
And thank
yung
you
ano,
also
sir,
to Mark.
Thank you rin po.
Yung data natin on registration, sir, natin ma-finalize yan by December 15, sir.
Okay.
Yes. Isang tanong, Director Elnas. How many SK registrants yung na-mass transfer from the SK registration to the regular?
If I remember it right, sir, yes, we have, sir, ang EBAD mayroon. If I remember it right, mga 1.6 million. Yun yung ini-import natin from SK database to the regular database.
Okay. So those who turn 18 by election
Yes,
day.
sir. Yes, sir. Pero dumaan pa rin sa approval ng ERB yan because there might be some other disqualifications.
Okay.
Posting tapos approval ng ERB.
Okay. Yeah, that
Thank
sounds
you, sir.
great. Thank you. We know that the numbers are tentative yet.
Yeah.
Pero yun nga, yung kino-compare ko lang yung yung mga numbers na na-announce at plus yung sa PSA.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you then.
Thank you. Thank you,
Director
everyone.
Elnas. Director
Sir Eric.
Elnas. Yeah. Pwede ba kaming mag-set ng meeting sa iyo to explore further yung yung kaninang diniscuss niyo sa yung Citizens Watch on the different aspects and possible na citizens parallel count using BBPAT. We're very interested in that. Sige, tatawag kami sa opisina niyo, Director, ha?
Wag lang i-diretso sa akin, sir. Daan lang kay Executive Director, sir.
Executive Director.
Or kay Commissioner Casquejo, sir.
Casquejo?
As head of the steering committee.
Sasabihin ko lang about this yung forum na na-pick up natin yung ideas. Okay lang sa inyo. I-refer ko lang na ganito.
Commissioner Casquejo na lang, sir. Kay
Commissioner Casquejo na lang. O sige.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Maraming salamat, Attorney
Okay,
Mildred,
maraming salamat.
Mr. Bill, Director Elnas, Director Bragado. Sa
Thank you rin
ulit.
po.
Safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you po, NAMPREL team.
Bye.
Thank
Ingat
you.
po lagi.
Maraming salamat.
Si Sir Bill, ang recruiter ko sa NAMPREL dati.
Good to see you, Dred.
Thank you po.
Thank you, sir.
Reunion
Nice to
pala
see you
to?
here. Opo, reunion namin.
Lito and Eric, lots of work to do.
Ine-recruit namin ulit si Sir Bill.
Sige po.
Thank you po.
I like June's 5 standards. Very clear. This is what we got to
Thank you
do.
po.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.